Hey, what's going on, USC family? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, and I cannot be more thankful for all of you for tuning in and making this show a part of your day and making LAFB your home for USC coverage. Truly means the world to me, so thank you. Fun show today. I plan on just talking recruiting. USC did unfortunately suffer its first decommitment. I'm going to talk about why no one should panic. Plus, a 5-star elite recruit shuts down his recruitment. That's a big win. And lastly, what I'll mostly talk about, and this is not going to be any bashing or anything like that, but there is a national show out there that just had some interesting takes about USC and Lincoln Riley. So I want to give kind of my thoughts on that and would love to get your thoughts too, which I'm sure there'll be some good ones. So let's get all into it. But first and foremost, depending when you listen to this, I just want to give a huge shout out to all the moms out there. Mother's Day just around the corner. Recording this on Friday, so obviously 2 days away from Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to my amazing mother. Happy Mother's Day to my amazing wife, mother of our daughter. Everything moms do for us, they make the world go round, right? Most powerful people in the world are moms, and so blessed to have them in our lives. So make sure you treat your mom, your wife, your spouse, with respect, with love, shower them with gifts, whatever they want to do on Sunday and every day, really. Mother's Day should be every day, not just May, whatever it falls on, the second Sunday of May or whatever. So, yeah, huge shout out. Happy Mother's Day to obviously all the Trojan moms out there, but all moms across the world. So, thank you, thank you. All right, first, so Cohen Brown, 3-star wide receiver, ends up decommitting today out of Texas. And, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. I did write an article up on LAFB Network that you can go and check out. This was his statement that he put out. After a lot of thought and meaningful conversations with my family, I've decided to decommit from USC. I want to sincerely thank the coaching staff and everyone at USC for all the support and belief in me. I truly appreciate everything they've done. At this point, I feel it's best for me to reopen my commitment 100%. Thank you all for understanding and for the continued support. It means a lot. So USC still sits with 4 receivers in this class. They're pursuing quite a few more. I've said many times, I know everyone doesn't agree with this. I believe they'll finish this class with 5 or 6 wide receiver commits. They were at 5. They dropped back down to 4. I think there's still big pushes out there for names like Vance Spafford and guys like that. I know he's committed to Georgia, but pushing for guys to eventually, flip. Madden Williams at Texas A&M commit from St. John Bosco is another name. So this to me, and this is just my opinion, I haven't talked to anyone yet about this. I hope to over the weekend. It almost feels like it was maybe a little mutual. I'm not saying for sure, that's just my opinion, but I feel like for USC specifically, and I think Cohen Brown, everything I said about him before, I think he's a tremendous athlete. He's got obviously tremendous speed, good size, looked like he was going to play in the slot based on the recruitment by Chad Savage. Still think he's a heck of a player and is going to end up at a heck of a program. Would have loved to see him here. But I think USC, with who they have and who they're going after, not sure if they went and said, hey, we appreciate you, we love you, but I think we're going to go a different direction, or if it's one of those where it just kind of worked out that Brown says, you know what, I want to stay closer to home. In my opinion, I think he'll end up somewhere at Texas. SMU and Baylor have been recruiting him hard. And USC is kind of like, okay, this actually works out better. When you look at Luke Weaver, who just committed, this past, last weekend, a week ago, he's bigger in size than Brown. Brown's about 6', 180. Weaver's like 6'3", 205. So bigger body. But in terms of a 100-meter dash is actually faster. Brown ran a 10.69, and this past spring, Weaver ran a 10.68. So you get bigger frame and faster. I know that's basically the same. I mean, that's a super similar time. But it almost it's like repetitive in terms of the type of player that they were recruiting there. So it almost works out in USC's favor. And again, I'm not trying to just cope and blow smoke and all this. I'm just being completely honest because, when you have 27 commits, some of these are going to happen, and sometimes it works out actually better for both parties. And so I think Brown will end up probably closer to home, which may be better for him. And I think USC is still going to add 2 more receivers, 1 or 2 more receivers, and now they can potentially get one that maybe fits a different bill because Luke Weaver and Cohen Brown, to me, were just very similar. Trent Mosley even in that similar build as well. So, and then you look at Tizino as well. They were getting a little too much similarity with these types of receivers, and that can kind of get a little differentiating between the receiving group. So, Cohen Brown committed on April 2nd, so it was a short commitment, about a month, but wish him all the best, and I think it'll work out fine for both parties. So no reason to panic. This isn't like the start of a slew of decommits. Will there be more? I've said many times now on the show that I could see there being a couple, but I have no doubt in my mind that it's not going to be anything remotely like last year. I think the bulk of these kids will make it all the way to December staying in this class. And a reason why is what I want to talk about next. And we've talked about this with Samote Katanga. We've talked about this with, some of the running backs and whatnot, Brandon Arrington. And now one of the latest commits, 5-star offensive tackle Keenyi Pepe, announced today that he's shutting down his recruitment. I actually shout out USCJ. I was talking when he first committed. USCJ was saying, I think on his show that day, that he was shutting down his recruitment. This was like a week ago. But now Rivals is reporting after an interview with him of him saying that he is indeed shutting his commitment down. And he says, this is what he said. I love this quote, by the way, because I've said this almost exact thing on the show. Many of you will remember. But he said, I feel like being committed and taking other visits is like going on other dates when you're married, he told Rivals. I'm staying committed and staying with one school. I'm not bouncing around with schools. I love that. I've said, he went even a step farther. I've said once you commit, that's like when you're dating and saying, I'm not dating any more people. So it's like you tell, like, we're boyfriend, girlfriend. And then when you go on other visits, it's like, well, I told you that, but I'm actually going to go on other dates. But he went a step further and saying the commitment was the marriage. And then it's like he's dating while being married. So, I love that. That shows how committed and locked in he is to USC. And one of the reasons why he feels so good about it, he says, it's just closer to home. I know I said a lot of other times that location didn't matter, but when I went to USC, my whole family came out. It was my mom's first time going on a visit with me. It felt different. For a lot of, I'm not even say kids, people in general, right? And I can speak on this because I moved out of state. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I went to Long Beach State for college. And that was my decision that I was ready to get out of the nest, right? Ready to be away from home. And I think there is a certain amount of people that I don't want to say value, but desire that. They want that. They kind of want that independence of being out on their own. The vast majority is more like, I want to have a little bit of independence, but I still want that, not necessarily nest egg, but I still want that close relationship with my family nearby. And I want them to be at every game because it's just different when my family can be at the games with me, when they can just cruise up to campus for dinner one night or for lunch one day. And when you live across the country, sure, most of these families end up making it to the games, but that's the only time you see them, and it's quick. And so it is different when you play for the hometown school in whatever state people live in. And Pepe obviously goes to school in Florida, but he's a Southern California native. And so I think that is huge for a lot of these kids. And it is a huge difference. And that's another reason, as I said many times, why I don't see a slew of decommits. Because, as of right now, 62% of the class is California commits. We'll see how much that number goes up and down with kind of the remaining, what are they looking at, 9 more commitments they're shooting for. And many of those targets are in California. So, but big news. Anytime you get another big name like Pepe, which he is not the first, many in this class have already done this, but he's just the latest to officially shut down his recruitment, which is huge news and big news. So that's a little recruiting update for you. Now I wanted to get into this. So, and again, this is not going to be bashing or, I don't even know these guys like this. And this is just football related. I feel like sometimes podcasters, content creators almost take things personally when they don't agree with like a football take. It's bizarre, right? Like we're talking football, like who really cares? But you can still call it out and say it's wrong, right? So Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman, On3. I'm a big fan of On3. I know there's mixed opinions on that just because of how they do West Coast recruiting rankings and whatnot, but they have their show, Andy and Ari. They just did an episode, I don't know, yesterday, 2 days ago, and they did a full 15-minute segment on USC. And so 2 things out of that that I want to talk about. One, kind of an underhanded opinion on just California prospects in general. Let me just pull the quote here. So I'll start with that, and then they do like a top 10 coach or program rankings, and they don't include USC, which I'll get into in a second. But we'll start with this. So, yeah, they're talking kind of Oregon, talking recruiting, talking California, and then Ari Wasserman says, this is his quote: "California has a bunch of really, really highly rated players all the time in the top 100, and they don't hit at the same rate as Southern players do. So there's a question of whether or not California players that they use to subsidize their entire roster are good enough. How many five-star players signed during the Clay Helton era that turned out to be dog blank? The California, they're the best players in the country thing, I think, is not true right now." I mean, to really like dissect this, we would have to go into a ton of data points, right? See like how many kids from each state are rated in the top 100. Like, what's the comparison there? I did look over the last kind of couple of years, and every year California had like 8 or 9 in the top 100. So it's not like they like dominate with like 50 kids in the top 100. It's like 8 or 9 in the top 100. So he's already kind of wrong there, just assuming that they're just like every top 100 prospect is from California. They're probably low on that, to be honest, if getting to my next point. So that's one thing. But then you have to just look at like, what is success, right? How do we statically measure success? Is it draft rate? Is it collegiate stats? What is it? Is it playing time? Is it amount of times having to transfer? Like, there's a ton of data points, and I know this is just a podcaster just giving his opinion, so I don't need to break it down that much. But there's no real way to prove it. But I think I don't know anyone else out there that would say California is not at least like top 4 in the country. Like, you could make the argument right now Georgia is a bigger hotbed. You could make the argument Florida is the bigger hotbed. You could make the argument Texas is the biggest hotbed. But it kind of stops there. Like, Georgia, Florida, Texas, California. Like, those are your 4 biggest in terms of just output, talent, and just sheer volume. Like, you can't like argue. So I guess if you want to say that California's not the best, then maybe he has a point. But now we're pulling at straws, because obviously his point being was USC and these schools aren't good because they're recruiting California, which is kind of ironic considering USC the last kind of 3 years hasn't really recruited California, and this 26 class is the first year where they're really, really diving back into the California recruiting that made USC so good for so many years. So it's just kind of a head-scratching point all along. Like, if you don't like USC, or you don't like what they're doing, or you don't like Lincoln Riley, I think there's a lot of variables you could pull out of why like USC is struggling, and we've talked about that a lot on these shows, and especially when we talk with Tim and Madman and Coach Rowe. I don't think California prospects are the road to go down. I don't think that's the hill to die on of why that they're not good. And especially when you're talking right now, because that was a big thing too, right? He said right now. I'm sure he would even say, oh yeah, historically with Pete Carroll, like when they recruited 75% California, and look how good they were. Even right now, I mean, we could even just talk about how every school comes to California to try to take these kids away from USC, right? Like, that's what Oregon's made a living on, right? Trying to live in California. Alabama, Georgia, they've been coming in spades to California. So that tells you enough just right there. We could just end it there. But then you look at high school rankings, and not just the stars, the actual high schools. 4 of the top 20 teams in the country are from California, which is the most of any state. 2 of those schools, Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, are in the top 5. One of those schools, Mater Dei, is number 1 and was wire-to-wire number 1 inning national champion last year, and they're probably going to be better this year, seeing all the talent they have coming back. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? Those are the best players. Now, if they don't develop at the next level, because he brings up Clay Helton, like we all know, the issue with the Clay Helton era was coaching and development. It wasn't that these high prospects just ended up bad. They didn't get developed and coached right. I mean, to me, that's just clear as day. And this is, I've said this before, this is why it's hard when national pundits, national analysts try to go real niche within a specific team or program. And it's hard. So I'm not saying this as a bad thing, but when you cover a national sport and you try to spend a lot of time digging into one team, you're going to miss a lot of things. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I could just like analyze Alabama or Ohio State. Like, I'll say little things here and there, but obviously what I know is USC because I cover them day in and day out. I'm at the practice facility, talk to the coaches. I've never talked to Brian Kelly at LSU before. Never talked to Mario Cristobal in Miami. So like, yeah, I might have an opinion, but I never want to usually say it as this is like actual fact. And so when national guys do that about specific, and this doesn't just happen to USC, this happens all over, you really have to take it with a grain of salt because it's like you can only comprehend so much sometimes when there's, I mean, just within the Big Ten and the SEC, you're talking about what, 40, 38 teams you got to think about, plus the ACC, plus the Big 12, plus any of the, anyway. So that was one thing. I just thought that was interesting. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, I just think to me it's pretty laughable to kind of say California high school prospects are not actually that good. So I think pretty much 98% of the country would say like, no, yeah, they're probably one of the top hotbeds of football players in the entire country. I don't think that's like hard to fathom. I think everyone would agree with that. So that's why when I heard this, I was just like, wait, what? That's what you want? Like, there's so many things you can go after, so many issues you could talk about with USC, but that's the one you want to go with? So anyway, fascinating. The other thing quickly I'll talk about is they have this, came up with this list, and it came out a few days ago when they talked about on the show, top 10 college football jobs. And I only listened to the USC segment, so I don't know if there was any context before, any explanation before, because they kind of dove into it back and forth on this segment. But I was having a hard time understanding maybe what their differentiator, or like how they were defining the top 10 college football job. Because there had to be some factor in there that maybe I was missing. Because to me, it made no sense. Like, and one of the hosts kept saying like, if you think USC is a top 10 job, then you're saying Lincoln Riley is doing a good enough job. And I don't understand, like, if he's ranking the top 10 programs right now in terms of like an AP rank, a college football rank, that's different. But if they're ranking it as like a desirable job that a coach would want, it doesn't matter if Lincoln Riley is having success or not. Every coach in America still wants the job, probably. So anyway, neither of them include USC. They both include LSU. Ari Washman includes Oklahoma. I'll put a screenshot up on the screen so you guys can see. But for those listening, I'll read really quickly. So Andy's top 10: Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, LSU, Notre Dame, Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, Penn State. Wasserman's Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. So, again, I was just confused of if there were parameters for this, because the way I was understanding it is they're literally just ranking the 10 best jobs. Like, if you're a football coach and you can pick any job in college football, these are your top 10. Like, that's how I take it. I think that's what they meant. Let me know if you guys saw it differently. And to me, and I didn't grow up in LA. Like I said, I grew up in Denver. I've lived here now since 2008, so 15 years or whatever. I don't see how anyone would ever say USC is not in that. When you look at the history, the tradition, the winning, even though it's been 15 years, like, still. the location, the alumni, the facilities that are, even the facilities that weren't up to par are still not terrible. Like, I've been John McKay Center. Yeah, they're not what they're going to be. It's not like a dump. Playing at the Coliseum, one of the most historic stadiums in all of the world. Like, I can't fathom. And maybe because I'm newer, and by newer I mean like 4 years newer to college football coverage, but I really can't fathom like not including USC as one of the top 10 most desirable jobs in college football. And again, I was just so confused because if you watch the segment, Andy keeps saying, if you think it's a top 10 job, and he's not saying to me, obviously, if you think it's a top 10 job, then you're saying Lincoln Riley is doing a good enough job. What does it have to do with anything? If we're just, again, unless I'm missing something. And if he's using that argument in some weird way that I don't understand, how do you include LSU and Brian Kelly? They've virtually had the same output. How do you include Oklahoma and Brent Venables? Virtually the same output, if not worse, actually. Oklahoma's been worse because they were bad, had a better year, then bad again. LSU and USC had a very good first year, then have kind of tapered off since. I don't understand it. So I would love to. I'm sure these guys are great. I've never met them personally. And again, I'm talking football takes, not anything about them as people. I've never met them. I'm sure they're awesome guys. But I would love to just chat with them and just like, okay, give me the actual reasoning. Like if you're saying it's not a desirable job because LA is too expensive, so yeah, even if you get paid a lot, stuff goes to taxes and traffic and this and that. Okay, I guess that's a reason. I still think a coach would take that over some of these other schools, to be honest. Like, I don't think this is a hot take. If we're just talking, again, a blank slate, and you can take over any program, I cannot think of any coach that would choose Oregon over USC. I can't. I mean, people leave Oregon for Miami and Florida State, and neither of those schools are on this list, but the last 2 cycles that happened, Mario Cristobal left Oregon for Miami. Willie Taggart left Oregon for Florida State. You're not and I'm not even trying to disrespect Oregon. I know it's fun to do with USC fans, but that's not even that's just the way it's gone. No one is leaving USC for another job, except maybe the NFL. But no one's leaving USC for another collegiate job. Danton Lynn, the DC, didn't leave to go to his alma mater, Penn State, to stay at USC, who Andy has ranked 10th and no USC. And Dan Lynn, who played at Penn State, was offered to take over the DC job there, turn it down to stay at USC. Chad Bowden, one of the rising general managers in college football, was at Notre Dame. Just went to the college football playoff with a roster that he helped construct. Notre Dame is on this list both times for both guys. He leaves Notre Dame to go to USC saying there is no better place in college to be. He could not pass on the opportunity to go to USC. And he was at Notre Dame, who was just in the college football playoff. He wasn't at Louisville. Sorry, Louisville. I didn't mean to just throw a stray at you. But he wasn't at some like smaller school. So I'm just like, my mind is, I don't understand it. Tell me if I'm missing something, guys. But anyway, that's that. I don't want to keep just ranting for no reason. I was like fascinated. I'm just like, I know USC has not been what USC needs to be. And I know for the excitement of this 2026 class, we have to see it come out in 25. But I don't understand the rationale. It's kind of like I'm not by any means a Cowboys fan. The Cowboys have been like not good for since the 90s. It's still probably one of the most desirable head coaching jobs in all of the NFL. And the NFL is a little different because it's a much more even playing field. But regardless of what's happened the last few, like, the Cowboys are still America's team. One of the most watched, the highest, obviously the highest net worth team in all of sports. So just because USC's had some like downtrodden years the last 15 years doesn't mean it's like not a desirable job. Especially, again, and last thing, and I'm getting off my soapbox. If they would have recorded this like end of last year, I still wouldn't have agreed with it because it's USC. But if they would have done that or like over the past years or whatever, before they hired a GM, before the new facilities were approved, right? $500 million facilities that are going to be done by next season. Before all this, coaching staff, before all this influx of money and NIL has been figured out, like then I could maybe be like, well, I don't agree with you, but I get your rationale. But to do it now, this week, with everything going on, and to say a coach would take 10 schools over USC to coach at, all things being equal? Ludicrous. All right, guys, I'm going to pop a blood vessel, I think. Everyone have a fantastic weekend. Again, I'm Ryan Darrett. Please, if you have not already, hit that like and subscribe button. USC LAFB is the YouTube channel. Drop your comments below. You can hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Darrett LAFB. I've mentioned a forum multiple times. It is actually, I've built it. I just have to actually create the topics and the theme. So it's almost ready. So I promise it'll be ready on LFB Network. I would love if we can start kind of engaging there, building that up as well. We'll drop some tidbits in there as well, kind of as recruiting updates and whatnot. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully this week it'll officially be live. Yeah, have a great weekend. Have a very happy Mother's Day. Celebrate your moms, your wives, and all the moms out there. Mean the world to us. And thank you all for tuning in. It means the world to me. Everyone have a great weekend. Talk to you next week.